boy math is calculating how many games you can get out of a waiver wire slot with 4 weekly ads in a week of fantasy basketball instead of paying your water bill. Michael Bolton agrees with us.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. I was too busy doing a joke at the start of the show. I forgot to tell you what this is. We're looking ahead to Sunday, the final day of week 1 for fantasy matchups. What are we watching for? What are the injury statuses? Who are we streaming in? What's on my radar? Well, that is actually what we're doing. So we might as well do it now. The Daily Look Ahead is banging in right now. Let's have a look at some injury statuses as they currently stand for Sunday's games. Chris Middleton is out. It's the first game of a back-to-back for the Bucks, so he's seeing that one. Yes, I know we only played 16 minutes in the first one. There was basically no chance he was playing both of these back-to-back games, so it's going to be a very rough start for Middleton. I was someone who was big on him versus his ADP, which was like 90, and then the Lillard trade happened and I dropped him way back behind that, and then we got more news of the knee injury and I was scared shitless of drafting him, and it has not been a very strong start. Terrence Mann is out for the Clippers again, so we expect that Bob Covington starts, but he hasn't been getting very big minutes. Jock Landale is out. Jock Landale for the Rockets. So does that mean Jeff Green at center? Does that mean a million minutes of Şengün? That's what happened last game. And then if we look at some other injury situations, a couple of intriguing ones popped up. Steph is on the injury report for the Warriors. Okay. Didn't see that coming. This is a first game of a back-to-back for the Warriors. So let's watch this one. Foot soreness. They play the Rockets and the Pelicans. Do not be shocked when Steph sits one of these games. John Kuminga is also there with foot soreness. Might sit one of them too. I'm jumping ahead, but Draymond Green is currently listed probable, but he said he's going to play. He's just going to be on somewhat of a minutes limit. So we're going to see still not a full rotation, I'm guessing, across these 2 games for the Warriors to figure out how it's all going to play out. Trey Lyles hasn't played yet this season. I'm going to list him questionable with a calf issue. We've seen JaVale McGee get those minutes. We'll see what happens to Vezenkov when Lyles plays and how those minutes do shake out. But the Curry and Kuminga ones are probably the 2 bigger unknowns. Of course, the other unknown is what the hell is happening with James Harden. Is Harden going to be available for the home opener? Maybe. Maybe he plays. They're back off their road trip. He's out Saturday. I wish I had more information as to whether Jim was going to be available for Sunday's game. But at this point, I don't. So then we look at, the other injury is the Draymond Green one, who said he's going to play, but he is going to be limited. That is not a shock coming off this ankle injury, which has cost him like 3 or 4 weeks. So he's going to be, maybe he even comes off the bench, but I expect if Steph is out that we'd see Draymond start, but he might not. He might play like 24, 25 minutes. So there's going to be that issue for Draymond Green. Let's look at the stream of the day for Sunday. These are all, have certain cutoffs that we use here. For 12 teams, we use 45%. For 16 teams, we use 10% rostered. Jalen Johnson is still somehow under the cutoff. He is very clearly the stream of the day for points leagues, category leagues. Very clearly, like it's obvious. For a 16-team league, I'm looking at the big stiffy, the 5-minute man, Bones Highland. He's played 20 minutes in each of the 2 games for the Clippers, and they are running a little bit small, and they're just using his scoring punch. Is he going to be awesome? Or I don't know. But in a 16-team league, a guy that's rostered or available basically everywhere is a pretty strong guy to grab. So while there's been some stinking stream of the days, Dayron Sharp, shout out to you, my guy, a couple of days ago, I feel really confident about having Jalen Johnson there and even Bones Highland for that deeper format. So they are some very, very strong stream options. And of course, Johnson's more than a stream, Jalen Johnson. You add him and then you just roll with it. And I even think Bones Highland in a 16-team league, even though it's a stinking week for the Clippers, check my week 2 preview show earlier today, with their schedule with 2 games and then no games for the final 4 days of the week, Bones in a 16-team probably makes sense to have on your roster. And if he is floating around in 16 or deeper, you'd probably want to go, I reckon, and grab him and see how we end up there. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS as well, because it's not you against people. It's not you against other spreadsheets or algorithms and salaries and pros and sharks. It's player projections versus you. You look at them and you say more. Or the other one you look at, you hit the button and say less. Up to 6 of those, and you can win up to 25 times back. You can do it for so many different sports as well. Plus, PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, each Tuesday. Wow, what a shock that is. PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. They even offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account all through the year. So, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA, that's all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. The code is LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. So let's go back and look at some more streaming options now across the games in the NBA. These are all players who are available under 50% of leagues. I've got 5 options here for most standard formats. For a point guard eligible player, I do think Bones is probably the best one that's out there. There's going to be situations like if Steph Curry doesn't play, they won't directly sub a point guard in there. It'll be probably, I would guess, Moses Moody who would get the start, and then he would jump in, but he's not point guard eligible. So I think Bones is probably the best option out there for that. Malik Monk at shooting guard, I reckon that would be surpassed by Moody if Steph is out. But Monk's available everywhere. He can drop in assists as well, so he's a good option. At small forward, it's Norman Powell. Can be a good scorer. Obviously doesn't offer much more, but we feel okay about his minutes load. Jalen Johnson at power forward pretty clearly. And then at center, it is Mason Plumlee, who is not a great option, very clearly, but there's just, with 6 games on Sunday, there's not an abundance of great options who are 50% or more available. So Mason Plumlee does get the nod there. When we go deeper in leagues where players are rostered under 20%, Bones Highland still fits the bill there. At shooting guard, we've got Malik Beasley, no Chris Middleton, so that means probably a little bit more usage for Beasley, and he's already played 31 minutes in game 1, and he didn't play particularly well, but 12 points, 4 threes, 3 rebounds, and an assist. In a deeper league format, that works pretty well. Bob Covington is a small forward guy, going to start. You might get your 3 steals and 2 blocks even in 22 minutes. Good stream option. Jay Crowder, who played really well in the first game of the season, and now probably gets to start with Middleton out. I would guess they start him. It's either him or Connaughton. Regardless, minutes push up, usage pushes up. Reliance on him with Middleton's absence does improve. So he's a pretty good option there. And then at center, it is again Mason Plumlee without too many strong center eligible players out there. If we have a look at some 2-for-1, so who can you add to get 2 games for the price of 1? So we're not talking Sunday, Monday back-to-backs, because Monday does have 11 games on. So if you add someone for Sunday, Monday, you might not even use them on Monday. So no point to that. So what we are looking for is Sunday with 6 games and Tuesday with, I think, 3 games. Who are the guys you can add 1 waiver ad and get the 2 games out of them? Well, there's 2 teams we're looking at. It's the Clippers and it's the Spurs. So there's a bunch of Clippers guys who do fall that are available over 50%. Powell, Covington, Highland, Plumlee, Nico Batum, who played a lot of small ball center in their last game. And then for the Spurs, most guys are rostered who are going to have value. They're starting 6. Well, starting 5 plus Trey Jones. I don't know why I said starting 6. They're not cheating. The next guy is their 7th man, and that is the Discman himself, Cedi Osman. He's played 20 plus minutes in the first 2 games. And with 2 games, 3 nights, both low volume days, if you are desperate to get, I'd prefer like a Powell, Covington, Highland, I prefer those guys clearly. But Osman brings in there just to get you that extra game to start off the week solidly by getting the Tuesday in there. If you want to see some week 2, again, streaming options and how we attack streaming for week 2, it's in the video that I did earlier today. This is something I did last season and I hadn't brought it back, but I'm going to bring it back now. We call it chunks. We love to get chunky on this show. What does a chunk mean? So we're looking at not a full week. We're looking at like a 5-day grouping of games. of days. 5 days in a row. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Who are the teams that in that little chunk have beneficial schedules? There are 2 high-volume days, Monday and Wednesday, 11 games and an absolutely bonkers, insane 13 games on Wednesday. Shout out to the schedule makers for screwing it up. But are there any teams that go Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday? Well, I'm glad you asked, because there is. It's the Spurs. They play Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. So, if you're looking to get ahead of the curve, or feel good about having Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones, Jeremy Sohan. Like if Sohan and Jones are available, which they're above 50% rostered, that means they are still available in some of your leagues. This is a great time to add them. You get the game on Sunday, and then you get 3 quality games, the price of 1 ad that doesn't even count in week 2, and no one has a better run through Thursday than them. So the Spurs, 3 quality games in 5 days. They are the chunks that get us excited. Let's go and see what is on my radar. I've changed up the structure of this a little bit as well. So I'm going to just do game by game here. I wanted to avoid this because I just thought it dragged last season. So I still have cut it down a bit from last season, but we're just changing that format again slowly. Trying to tweak and get the best result in the smallest amount of time possible as I waffle on and talk bullshit here. The Nuggets and the Thunder, an early game. So just be ready to set your lineups. It's an early game. It is a 3:30 p.m. Eastern tip. Early game. Get your lineup set. So I want to watch Peyton Watson, who was sort of iffy in the preseason. Wasn't really sure where he was fitting, but he's looked great. Big blocks guy. Huge defender. If he starts at all this season through injury, he will be a 12-team league ad. So we want to see how he looks. On the negative side, I want to watch Josh Giddey because my concerns with him through the preseason were put on display in Game 2 and ramped up to 11. You went, oh no, that was bad. Now, I don't think he's going to be that bad every game, but that was my fear. So let's see how he gets used. In terms of what I'm going to do here again for the On My Radar games, 1 stream available in over 50% of leagues for both teams. So for Thunder, we're looking at Lou Dort. For the Nuggets, Christian Brown, but you could easily throw Peyton Watson in there. Brown just probably has a little bit more in terms of minutes upside, but maybe not. So there's a couple options, but Dort is available in a lot of spots. Just beware that what he did last game is, not going to happen consistently. The next game, with normal start time here, it is the Hawks and the Bucks. We do want to see Onyeka Okongwu. What are the minutes? Is it literally just 20 behind Capella? Has it been strictly foul trouble in the first 2 games? Does he ever play a minute next to Clint? Does he take a 3? He's been bad. Also remember that he was a backup last year too, and was a very clear top 100 player. So don't go and drop him, but we want to see what's going on here. For the Bucks, I want to watch Brook Lopez because he was decidedly uninvolved, and I had that fear. Now, with Middleton out, he probably moves back to being that 3rd offensive option, so we'll see what pushes back for Lopez. Streams from this game, well, obviously Jalen Johnson, who's a must-roster player. And then we go to Pat Connaughton as an option for the Bucks, but it could be Malik Beasley. It could be Jay Crowder. There's a lot of names there you can throw into that mix as streaming options. The next game on my radar, we're looking at the Warriors and the Rockets. Of course, we don't know whether Curry or Kuminga are going to play. I do want to see Kuminga because I would say that his first 2 games without Draymond would suggest that he is not a 12-team league player. I know he had an unbelievable preseason, but the caveat was always no Draymond, and they won't pump 35% usage into him in the regular season, and he's just sort of been old Kuminga. And now he's got a questionable tag. I would hold him through this back-to-back, because if he plays both and players sit, he'll have an increased role, but it's not looking good. Speaking of not looking good, Jabari Smith Jr. struggled massively. He just looks like rookie Jabari Smith in terms of the stats. He looks a little dejected. We saw that clip of him and Şengün. I am somewhat worried. I'm not dropping him, but I am somewhat worried that, yes, we saw some preseason performances. We saw him beating up in Summer League, but doesn't mean shit, really, when you get to the regular season. Who are my streams from these teams? Well, we are going to look at Moses Moody, because if Steph is out, I think Moody will get the start. It might be Gary Payton. It might be Brandon Podziemski. I highly doubt that. I think Moody would get the start to replace some of Steph's shooting, not for the Steph, of course. And a guy that is 50% plus available is Dylan Brooks for the Rockets, who's had 2 very, very good games and very big minutes. And he's moving, I think he's a 12-team points guy. He's moving into 12-team category league value. We'll see whether it lasts, but can't sit here and lie and tell you that it's been bad from Dylan Brooks as much as I might get annoyed by the bloke. He's been good the first 2 games. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. So you go in, you place a moneyline bet for $5, and if it wins, you get $150 back in bonus bets. And then you can use those bonus bets on the other things that FanDuel has, like spreads and totals and over-unders and player props and futures. It's all there over at FanDuel Sportsbook. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's never been a better time to get in and grab those bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Let us bring in the next game that we're going to look at, what is on our radar. We're going to the Portland Trailblazers and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are on a back-to-back in this one, so I don't know what I'm watching for there. Let's see what transpires on Saturday. But for the Blazers, I'm definitely watching Sterling Henderson, because to say that he has been poor would be accurate and probably an understatement. He has not played very well at all through his first 2 games. This is very, very, very common for point guards. I have not changed my assessment on Scoot Henderson at all. And I actually mentioned this plenty of times through mock draft season, that if you draft Scoot, don't go too high, because I think for the first month to 2 months, you might have a player that is outside the top 200. And then you might have a top 50 guy down the stretch. That is usually, not always, that's usually how it goes. De'Aaron Fox, Darius Garland, they were just bad the entire rookie season. Scoot, I think, is still an elite prospect. He's looked lost. It's really hard. And also break the mold in your head that it is hard. It takes big men longer to develop. It does not. It takes guards longer to develop in the NBA, not big men. Big men can go out and produce immediately. Guards do take longer. So we do want to watch Scoot. We're definitely not dropping Scoot, because I would hope that if you drafted Scoot, you understood that this would be shit for a little bit of time. So for me, all these sort of situations I'm giving to mid to late November. Thanksgiving. That's usually a good cutoff. Streams, Matisse Thybulle. He doesn't do much, but he is going to start. I'm not sure how many minutes he's going to get. Like, you could, if Shaden Sharp and Malcolm Brogdon are available, yeah, you obviously add them. They're must-roster players. But Thybulle's probably the guy, he is the guy who's 50% plus available, who I'd look to there. And then on the Sixers, yeah, look, Kelly Oubre, great stream. Paul Reed, maybe, but maybe gone. So PJ Tucker, who doesn't do much, but there's not many other options to look at. Maybe it's Jaden Springer or Pat Beverly, but I don't really trust Minutes legend Nick Nurse to play them enough for that to matter all that much. The next game we look at is the Lakers. It is the Sacramento Kings. What we do want to watch is the crucifix, Christian Wood, for the Lakers. He closed next to Davis last game. Is that what they're going to do? He rebounded well. He didn't score or shoot well or do anything else. But if he does play 23 a night, at least puts him back on the 12-team radar. I'm not suggesting that he's a must-roster player. I don't believe that. I think there's a lot of negatives in his game pretty clearly, and he does need a lot of usage and a lot of minutes to turn into a strong fantasy guy. But we want to watch it. We want to see what happens. And then for the Kings, I want to watch Kevin Huerter. Not so I can decide whether to drop him, because you shouldn't have drafted him and you should have dropped him after each of the first 2 games. So I'll reiterate it now. Please, you don't need to roster Kevin Huerter outside of a desperation stream for this game. But can he get some confidence back? And but more importantly, how is Mike Brown going to use him? And Malik Monk? Davion Mitchell even? Chris Duarte? Just another name in that mix with Duarte who's going to really suppress Huerter's value. Streams, I think Christian Wood is a solid enough stream. And then on the Kings, I would much rather stream in Malik Monk than have a Duarte or a Kevin Huerter. Not Chris Huerter. Yeah, you know what I mean. Kevin Huerter. Chris Duarte, Kevin Huerter, just merging those blokes together. The last game we're looking at, on my radar, SpursClippers. On the Spurs, what is the Trey Jones, Jeremy Sohan minutes distribution look like? We had big minutes from Jones last time in the overtime game. Didn't score very well, but he had good assists, and that's useful. Sohan was actually pretty good as well. In fact, he was a better fantasy producer in 7 fewer minutes than Jones. But that's a problem, 7 fewer minutes. For the Clippers, I want to watch Ivica Zubac. I think he's more of a 24 to 25 minute a night player versus a 28 minute player. He was very hugely marginalized in that last game for the Clippers against the Jazz as they moved away from Kessler and put Olynyk out there. Let's see how Ty Lue deploys him. And in terms of streams, Chetty Osman's probably the only Spurs guy who's readily available. And then for the Clippers, I'd go with Norman Powell, but you could throw in Covington, you can throw in Bones Highland as options there as well. And that, guys, will do it for me today. Don't forget to follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app. And if you're on YouTube, thumb it up and leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.